Are women stronger than men? For decades, the fitness world has measured strength by brute force, how much weight you can lift in a single, maximal effort. But looking at a real-life event tells a deeper story. In the frozen stillness of a Utah winter, a man's pickup truck skids off the road, flips, and traps him beneath its weight. What happens next is nothing short of extraordinary. His two teenage daughters lift the 3,000-pound truck and pull him to safety. And suddenly, the age-old debate about strength men versus women becomes far more complicated. It's a remarkable story of adrenaline and instinct, but it also taps into a question we've been asking for centuries: who is actually stronger, women or men? The answer isn't as simple as muscle mass or physical size, because strength shows up in ways we don't always measure. For generations, this has been framed as a battle of brawn versus biology. But today, we're not dealing with stereotypes. Now we turn to the science itself, from the muscle fibers that generate raw power to the brain chemistry that fuels human resilience. Only then can we understand what strength really means. And the answer is a lot more complex and far more fascinating than it seems at first glance. To understand why, we have to start with something scientists refer to as the undeniable power gap. We'll begin with the simplest and most familiar measure of strength: pure physical force. If we step into a gym and measure the maximum weight lifted by an average man and an average woman, the results are consistent. Men tend to have higher physical strength, but how much stronger? Research shows that women's absolute strength averages roughly 67% of men's, with upper body strength closer to 55% and lower body strength around 72%. The strength gap is most pronounced in the upper body, where men typically have significantly more muscle mass and force output. Research shows that women possess approximately 50–60% of the upper body strength of men, primarily due to differences in skeletal muscle distribution, particularly in the arms and shoulders. Take grip strength, one of the simplest ways to measure force. In large-scale studies, the average woman generates less grip force than nearly all men. In athletic disciplines requiring power and speed, performance data shows that adult men typically exceed female results by 10–30%, depending on the event. So where does this gap begin? It starts with puberty, the moment biology takes a sharp turn. Puberty triggers a sharp rise in testosterone for males, with adult levels typically ranging from 265 to over 900 ng/dl, compared to just 15 to 70 ng/dl in females. That's up to 15 times higher. This rise in testosterone has a strong anabolic effect, significantly accelerating skeletal muscle growth. This surge reshapes the muscle itself. It drives the growth of larger, more powerful type 2 fast-twitch fibers, the fibers behind explosive strength. Population data shows that men typically have around 33 kilograms of skeletal muscle mass, while women average closer to 21 kilograms, a substantial difference driven largely by hormonal and developmental factors. That fundamental biological difference, not effort or motivation, is the main reason for the strength gap we see. Leveling the playing field. Strength is relative. But that perspective is incomplete. A 200-pound man and a 130-pound woman aren't comparable on equal terms. The real question is, what changes when we normalize for body size? This is where the concept of relative strength becomes important, and where the picture begins to shift. When scientists measure strength relative to lean body mass, that's your weight minus fat, the gap shrinks. In some cases, it vanishes entirely. A fascinating 2021 study on squat and deadlift performance found no significant difference between men and women. Once lean muscle mass was used as the comparison point, this suggests that, pound for pound, and even fiber for fiber, men and women have strikingly similar lower body strength. This doesn't hold true for the whole body though. Even after adjusting for lean mass, men still maintain an advantage in upper body movements like the bench press. The difference appears to be less about muscle quality and more about muscle distribution. Men simply have a greater share of their lean mass concentrated in the upper body. Plus, research into muscle fiber types adds another layer. Studies show that women's muscles are built for endurance, thanks to a higher proportion of slow-twitch fibers. Women typically carry more slow-twitch muscle fibers, highly fatigue-resistant, and optimized for endurance. It's a subtle difference, but it matters. Research from exercise physiologist Sandra Hunter has found that women's muscles fatigue at a slower rate which can enable them to keep going longer than men. A man might lift a heavier weight in a single effort, but a woman may be able to sustain lower intensity work for a longer duration. It makes you wonder, is our definition of strength too narrow? Is it just about one explosive act, or is it also about the ability to endure? The other side of strength: resilience and emotion. This leads us to another dimension of strength: emotional and psychological resilience. For centuries, this was the realm where women were assumed to be stronger, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. But what does the science say? As it turns out, there's a biological basis here too. Let's begin with emotional intelligence, or EI. The capacity to recognize, interpret, and regulate your own emotions and those of the people around you. Studies consistently show that women, on average, tend to score higher in key areas of emotional intelligence, EI, especially in areas like understanding and regulating others' emotions and expressing their own with clarity and control. This often translates into stronger interpersonal skills and deeper empathy, qualities that are essential for building the social support networks that form the backbone of resilience. When scientists study resilience, our capacity to recover from hardship, the findings are complex, yet remarkably telling. Several studies indicate that women tend to score higher in domains like personal competence and tenacity. This may be connected to the distinct stress response patterns observed in male and female brains. Animal research indicates that female brains often display greater resilience to chronic stress, whereas male brains show more pronounced impairments under the same conditions. It's as if entirely different biological pathways are being activated. This doesn't mean men have no emotional advantages. Research shows they often score higher in intrapersonal abilities, particularly in managing and controlling their own emotions. But overall, the trend points to a female advantage in the social and empathetic skills that help build emotional endurance. The hidden load and societal pressure, but there's a crucial piece of context we can't ignore. If women often demonstrate greater emotional resilience, why do they also report higher rates of anxiety and stress-related disorders? It appears paradoxical, but the picture becomes clearer once you consider what researchers refer to as background stressors. Research from institutions like Yale, which studied healthcare workers during the COVID pandemic, found that while women initially reported higher levels of distress, this difference disappeared once researchers controlled for other factors. Women were more likely to hold lower status roles, enter the pandemic with higher levels of burnout, and face greater work-life conflict largely because they carried more of the caregiving burden. It wasn't that they were less resilient, it was that they were carrying a heavier load from the very start. This is further compounded by long-standing societal norms. For example, research shows that boys are often socialized to hold back their emotions to align with a stoic masculine ideal, while girls are encouraged to express theirs more openly. This doesn't imply that men experience less distress. Rather, they often express it in different ways, such as through anger or by suppressing it altogether, which can play a role in tragic outcomes, such as the higher suicide rates observed among men. Women, by contrast, are often more accustomed to processing their emotional state, a skill that functions as a form of strength in its own right. Their broader, more flexible social networks, often less dependent on work or specific activities, provide a strong buffer against life's challenges. This really reframes the conversation, doesn't it? It makes you wonder, is strength the absence of struggle or the ability to endure it? What about you? Has your own definition of strength shifted? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're finding this scientific exploration as fascinating as we are, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Redefining what it means to be the stronger sex. So, after all of this, who's stronger, women or men? Scientifically speaking, it's the wrong question. The premise is flawed, because strength isn't one dimension or one direction. Strength spans a multidimensional spectrum. At one end is that raw, explosive physical power. In this area, thanks to the biological effects of testosterone on muscle mass, men have a clear and measurable advantage. Their bodies are, on average, built to produce more force, more quickly. At the opposite end lies the strength of endurance and resilience, where scientific evidence suggests a female advantage. Whether it's muscles that fatigue more slowly, an immune system that mounts a stronger response, or emotional intelligence that forges deeper social bonds, women show a consistently remarkable capacity for endurance. It's important to note that a stronger immune system is also associated with a higher risk of autoimmune disorders in women. Yet women outlive men in nearly every nation, consistently surviving illness and trauma at higher rates. Of all the people known to live past the age of 110, the overwhelming majority, around 90%, are women. Men and women aren't stronger or weaker, their strengths simply take different forms. Neither sex is superior, but each is complementary to the other. Physical power can create, but emotional endurance is what allows anything to last. True strength isn't defined by lifting the heaviest weight, but by the ability to shoulder a burden, day after day, and continue moving forward. And by that measure, the score is anything but settled. As we close today's topic, we want to express our sincere gratitude to every woman out there working every single day to build a better life. Your strength is seen. Your sacrifices are felt. Your courage is real. And to every man who carries the weight of responsibility quietly, your strength is recognized, your effort matters, your presence matters. Different battles, different burdens. The same courage. Strength isn't about being a man or a woman. Strength is about being human and rising, even when the world tries to push you down. Stay tuned for more powerful topics every Saturday. Next week, we spotlight the women who changed science, medicine, and space. And if you want to keep growing with us, subscribe for more.